myself, since I'm maybe the black sheep in this group. So as our introducer just mentioned, I'm the founder and the CEO of Teach for Bangladesh, which is a nonprofit organization that works to address educational inequity in Bangladesh. The way we work to address educational disparity is by attracting top leaders, top graduates coming out of the best universities here in Bangladesh, and channeling their talent and their energy into the work of education reform. We run a fellowship program that takes these graduates and places them in low-income schools for 2 years, where they work full-time as teachers, contributing directly in classrooms to impact the outcomes of students, while also developing their own leadership capacity and perspectives so that they can contribute long-term to the educational structure and system of this country and work to increase opportunity for all children. Teach for Bangladesh has been in operation for about 5 years. In fact, we're very lucky that we're running the training for our 5th cohort of teachers right here in BRAC simultaneously as this conference is happening. And so if you see some bright-eyed young people running around talking about Teach for Bangladesh, some of them are in this room, and a lot of them are out and about on campus. Please talk to them and ask them about their experiences and share yours. I'll turn it over to Sabrina to introduce herself, and then
Hello. My name is Sabrina Shaheed. I am the principal of Sir John Wilson School. Let me give you a little bit brief about Sir John Wilson School. It's an English medium school in Dhaka City. We have been operating the school for the last 22 years, and I have been with the school from the very inception of the school. So I have joined the school as a teacher, and after a long period of time, I've become the principal. I'm the 5th principal of the school. And so when this topic came to me, the discussion panel topic was administrator and academics. I could see myself. And if I have to give a little bit brief of my school, it's run through a trust, Social Services and Management Trust. And what we do is whatever we earn from the school, after meeting up with all our expenses and the development fund, we donate it to charity. And for that, we donate it to a specific charity right now that is run through Impact Foundation. And we help to run a floating hospital called Jibontori. And the main drive for this school, the motivation for opening up this school is this actually, that whatever the business that we are doing and the profit that we are making from the school should go to something fruitful for the society. So that's the main intention, and that's how we have been operating so far. So I'll hand it over to Madiha right now.
My name is Madiha Murshed. In a few different ways, actually. I run 2 schools. Well, I and my management team run 2 schools. One is a very old, 40-year-old private institution called Scholastica, very large, 5 campuses, and we teach the British curriculum, the ONA levels. Our second school is much smaller, much newer, only 3 years old. It's an international school called Aurora International School that we hope will be teaching international curriculum. And we also have a training center that does a lot of teacher training, primarily teacher training, as well as soft skills training and English language training, but focusing largely on teachers. And through that, we end up working with a lot of other private schools in Dhaka and in Bangladesh in general. So that's a short version of what I do.
Yeah, and so we're hoping today to have a discussion around how private institutions operate in Bangladesh, what lessons there are to learn from the practice of private schools in Bangladesh, and how they can contribute to increasing overall equity and success, the strength of the overall education system. So I guess, I can kick us off with a first question. At Teach for Bangladesh, we work largely in government primary schools that serve very low-income children. Our children in primary school are only in school for about 2 or 3 hours a day, and children are from communities of urban poor here in Dhaka City. So most of our parents are rickshaw pullers, garments workers, day laborers, they sell vegetable on the streets. And our children face a lot of different challenges inside and outside of school. And so when our teachers go into the classroom, the very first thing we start with is thinking about what is the big vision that they have for their kids? What is the end outcome that we're driving towards? And at TFB, we think about our outcomes for children, not just in terms of academics, but kind of holistically. And so at TFB, we discuss sort of student outcomes as 4 A's. We talk about academic achievement. We talk about affect traits or character traits, kind of the attitudes that children have growing up. We talk about aspirations that children have, and then finally we talk about the access that they have to different opportunities. I'm really curious to hear from both of you, what is the vision that your institution has for your students, and how do you measure success?
Okay. I think, we come from a different background though, but, for education, you need to have a common platform. Like, what is the vision for education? I think right now, what we are working on in our school is making students, ensuring that they are students of the 21st century. Now, 21st century students need to have few criteria that they need to fulfill.
One, I would say that, the usual disciplines, the mandatory disciplines, I would say that English, maths, and other areas that they need to know the content of. But there are other aspects like the global awareness, civic and environmental literacy, and we are kind of emphasizing on that. In terms of skill building, I think we are emphasizing, we need to emphasize a lot more in innovation and creativity and problem solving and real life problem solving. So we would like to emphasize on that a lot. So that's one of our vision for the, going forward. And also collaboration and communication. Communication is one part I think the schools need to provide ground for, because if the students can voice their opinion, if they know how to say what's bothering them or what's actually making them happy even, I think we have a good ground to start off with, because students or young generation needs to have their voice, and they need to feel that, yes, they can say something even if it's bothering them, even if it's troubling them. So we give a lot of importance to that, but overall, as an whatever we do, we want to make sure that students understand that, it's not only them that they have to think about, it's the whole social structure. So empathy plays a big role in our school vision. Not just think about yourself, but for others as well, and how they can contribute to the community. It's not only us, and it's not only you, it's together what we can do. And a contribution towards that, even if you just start in a very small way, I think that platform needs to be given to the students, and how they can be creative and innovative in that direction. And towards achieving that goal, we do a lot of different activities in the school, starting from plantation, TEDx, we are starting a TEDx very soon, so where students can have their voice heard, when they can talk about their issues, and not only issues, their visions as well, and what they're thinking of and how they plan to execute that. So activities like that, I think that's one of our biggest idea that we
want to float, and that's what we have been doing so far.
And we do the same. What I struggle with, though, is how do you know if you're doing your job? What are the metrics? How do you measure that?
I think, it's not a straightforward result that you are going to get right away. You plan something, you adapt and you apply it, then you adapt it, you measure it, and then you reapply. So that's how it works. There's no surefire way of measuring it right away. But when you take feedback from students and from the other stakeholders like parents and teachers, I think you get a sense of idea that, okay, if it's working or not. And obviously when you float something new, you have to have some sort of target that you want to achieve, that, okay, I'm going to achieve this, I'm going to achieve that. So suppose I'm starting a program of a charity program. So students need to start with a target, and once they reach that target, we know that we have somehow achieved it. But the main question for me is, how do you go forward with that, and how can you make it more interesting or make it even bigger? So we are working towards that.
Yeah, Faisal, thank you so much for joining us. Do you want to take a minute to introduce yourself to the audience?
My name is Faisal Kader. I am the country manager for the Aga Khan Education Service. Apologies for being late. I ended up in the wrong CDM and then had a hectic drive here. But I'm here at least.
We're glad you're here.
Yeah, we're very glad to have you.
Thank you.
So we were just talking about the question of vision in schools, right? What is the vision that schools operate with, and how do schools think about student success? And on that point, I actually want to pick up, Madiha, on what you started talking about. You said, how do we actually do our job? It's all fine, well and good to talk about teaching creative thinking, teaching collaboration and citizenship in classrooms. One struggle that we often have at TFB is that even those of us and our educators, those who have gone to excellent schools, often haven't experienced the type of education that we're then expecting them to deliver to kids.
Story of my life.
And so tell us about how you deal with that. How do you get educators who've not experienced that kind of learning and get them to shift their paradigm in terms of what an excellent classroom looks like?
Thank you. Just to give a little bit of context, so in both the schools that I work with, we strive to teach what I call international best practice. We try to apply international best practice in our teaching. At the heart of it, that comes down to student-centered teaching. It comes down to active learning. And there's a lot more to it, but that's the heart of it. And I've lived abroad for many, many years, came back to Bangladesh 10 years ago, started working with Scholastica in the beginning. And when you're young and optimistic, you think, hey, this is going to be easy. We'll just do a bunch of workshops and train teachers, and they'll be teaching in a student-centered way. Not so much. The main challenge is, so I think, if you distill it down, I think the two main challenges that, from my own experience, that we've faced in Scholastica. One is exactly as you're saying, when we talk about student-centered teaching, when we talk about active learning, our teachers don't know they've never seen it. Their own educational background never was like that, right? It was all rote memorization and so on. As a result, the real issue is not even that they can't imagine it. And nowadays you've got YouTube videos, you can show it to them, which is helpful, and it's an important first step. One thing that I learned is it's important to show it to them by demonstrating. But the real challenge for me was that they don't believe it works. They don't trust that student-centered teaching is a better way of teaching. They worry that, well, there's not enough time for that because we have so much curriculum to cover. They worry that they won't be able to manage their classrooms, that they lose control of their students. They worry about their own roles. They've grown up in a situation, in an industry where they've been told they are the font of knowledge, imparting knowledge to students. And for that role to change, I think is pretty earth-shattering. So what I've faced, more than the practical stuff of, developing training programs and showing it to them, what I've really faced is this mental barrier, a lack of confidence and kind of a fear almost of taking the leap. And the way we've managed, it's been 2 steps forward, 1 step back, all of these last 10 or 11 years. The way we've managed, I think, is a lot of persuasion, change management, mindset management, a little bit of coercion, and sort of pushing people to take the leap, saying, trust me, take a leap, and we'll be there if you fall. And we'll be right by your side if something doesn't work. And it's okay if it doesn't work. I think in our culture also in particular, there's a massive fear of failure, right? So providing that comfort zone, being like, it's all right, we'll work together and we'll sort this out. It's become easier over the years. In the beginning, it was hardest at the start. And now some of our teachers are seeing the other teachers do it. And they're beginning to see the outcomes. They're beginning to see the changes in our students in terms of the way our students are responding to these methodologies. The confidence is growing. But to me, that's been a really big, and continues to be a really big challenge. The second piece of it that's been less of a challenge, but also something that we struggle with is, so in our school, we have a whole management system. We've got teachers, we've got academic supervisors who supervise our teachers. They work on assessment analysis, they working on lesson plans with teachers, they do teacher training. And again, the same problem, getting the buy-in at our management level. It takes a lot of confidence, especially when you're having to explain methodologies to parents who don't understand it. I'll give a little anecdote. The way we used to, so years ago, 10, 15, 20 years ago, the way literature was taught in our school was that they would take a novel, anything, whatever, let's say To Kill a Mockingbird, and teach it over the course of the year. So it would be one day a week for like 6 months that they're teaching the novel. And it would be reading in class, they would read the novel in class, and have a just teeny tiny little discussion and then assessments. So I was like, no, let's not do that. Let's teach many more novels, teach them all compressed. So you teach a novel a month, roughly. The children read at home, and they come prepared to talk, to discuss project work, all that kind of stuff. And I literally there was a lot of resistance from parents. I literally had parents coming, angry, screaming at me, being like, you want my child to memorize 5 novels in a year? I'm not kidding. A parent actually asked me that he thought we were expecting them to memorize 5 novels in a year. So when you've got even parents who don't understand what you're trying to do, don't see the value in it, the buy-in was like the biggest struggle. And we've come a long way since then, but it's been hard.
Yeah, that's an excellent seg to, I guess, my next question is, when we think about the private school system, especially as I contrast it to our experience in government schools, in government primary schools, there's a very limited leadership structure. So you have a core of teachers who are typically known as assistant teachers, and then you have a single head teacher who is the sole administrator and sole leader within a school. Which is quite different from the way in which a lot of private schools operate. And so I'm curious to hear from all three of you, very briefly, what does the kind of leadership system or structure look like in your school? But more importantly, what have been the key lessons around what does it take to run a school effectively? And I'd love to start actually with you, Faisal Bhai, because you come in at this from a different perspective, if I'm correct, right? You have an operational background in thinking about how to operationalize new schools also. And so I'd love to hear from you first, and then maybe Sabrina and Madiha, you can come in.
Sure, thanks. At the Aga Khan School, we have a very unique system whereby we have a country management because this is a part of the global schools of Aga Khan Education Service. But there we have the country management, and country management basically is involved only in the business side of it. Now, business, I don't mean profit-making business. We do what we fancy calling generating surplus. Because this surplus is required to reinvest in the system, in the schools, in order to develop further the systems, the infrastructure, the teaching and learning tools, the training in the teachers, the teaching and learning training, professional development, you name it, it's all there. And then the other thing is that there is a equivalent of a headmaster or a CEO or a principal who is essentially in charge of only delivering quality education and nothing else. His or her job is only to look after the education, ensure that the best practices of teaching and learning are being done, and we do invest heavily on them by sending them even abroad. We get consultants from coming in from outside. So these teachers or these academic management team, what we call the ALT, academic leadership team, is completely away from things like financial management, operations management, facilities management, procurement. All these things are done by a separate group, which is the operational team. I believe, I don't have that much of knowledge, but I would like to say that when you're talking about government schools, I think the system is very, very different. It runs under pure bureaucratic structure, which has been there for the last 200 years or 300 years. So those are not really operated like a business management style. In a business management style, again, I stress the word that it is not profit making, but the management, the strictness of the management with which you have to operate. So that thing is probably not there, which is why it's a structure where you have, as you have rightly said, there's one single headmaster who is in charge of each and everything and who is being constantly bombarded by people from the committee, and the committee have really no stake in the whole, in the school really. So that's one lesson that I could say that probably the government schools could learn from us, that divorce the responsibilities from the teaching team and give it to a more management team, a more streamlined management team.
Yeah, I wouldn't add too much more. We have something similar. We have different units in our school. We've got a unit called Student Affairs that does the kind of pastoral care, so things like discipline and counseling and all that. We've got an academic team, and their job is exactly that, purely academics, looking, teacher development and curriculum, looking at assessment. That's a big piece of what we do, is assessment analysis, and trying to identify students who are falling behind, teachers who need to up their game, all that kind of thing. And then you've got the operations, the admin and all that. When I first came back from the US, to my eyes, it felt that our management structure was too heavy. Why do we need so many people? And it took me a few years to figure out that we do. Because you really need that really strong supervision to ensure accountability amongst all our different stakeholders.
And can you give us a sense of what are the types of responsibilities that your management team has?
So in the academic team, there are basically three main silos. One is development, teacher training, and not just teacher training. I mean, development for all of our staff is a very big piece of what we do, and we spend a lot of time doing it. Number two is the assessment analysis. We take that pretty seriously because because I feel like we have to, because you need to be able to know, like I said, number one, which students are falling behind, and therefore, how do we help them, how do we support them? Number two, we're a very large institution, how do we ensure consistent quality across all of our teachers? We've got 400 plus teachers. How do we ensure consistent quality across all of them if we don't have some kind of metric to look at? So we look at assessment data. We have a software that captures quarterly assessment data. We look at that on a quarterly basis, identify teachers who need more support, identify students who need more support, and then we have a whole reporting system to ensure that they're getting the support that they need. And then the third silo of that is curriculum. So we have obviously curriculum documents, but how are the teachers interpreting that curriculum in terms of their lesson planning? We actually help teachers a lot with ensuring that the lesson planning is, again, student-centered and like all these sorts of things.
Perfect. I wanted to shift a little bit and think about kind of the way in which private schools are perceived in a broader sense in Bangladesh. And the first question I have is that, with the increasing number, the rapid growth of private schools in Bangladesh in the last, 2 decades, a question that sometimes comes up is around quality. And I'm curious, in your institutions, how do you think about this question of quality and ensuring it? And maybe Sabrina, if we can start with you.
We have a very humble opening, I would say, that when we started off the school, we had only 5 teachers and 9 students. And now we have 1,500 plus students and almost 200 teachers. The way we have grown is we have always emphasized on the quality the teaching that is happening in the classroom. I know assessment and result is a big, indicator, but we have tried to focus on the other part, that is teacher development. And as Madiha has mentioned, that it is still a very big struggle for us to shift that mindset that, yes, newer things can work and innovative ideas can actually work, and you don't need to worry about keeping the class in control. I actually tell to all my teachers that I like naughty kids. I like a class which is making some noise. I don't like a class which is in pin drop silence situation, and that's when I think something is going wrong. So when I move around in the classrooms, from classroom to classroom, I would like to see students are participating, students are, teachers are approachable, and we want to give trainings to the teachers, in that direction. In that term, I would say that, the lesson planning is plays a very integral role, because then you can see that, how they are implementing what they are, or what we are asking them to do. And also, I think it's very important for the students to know that they are, we will be taking feedback from them, because we can do a lot of things, but if it's not working well the way we think it should, there's no point of implementing that. So we like to take feedback on a regular basis. What works and what's not working, if we know about that, then it gets easier for the teachers to understand where they need to change, and for us to know that what is actually fruitful. So we take it quite frequently from the students, so that they know that they have a say in it, whatever they're learning. Another point is that PD, the professional development, we have very little scope for teachers to get professional training over here, especially for English medium schools. So what we have done with our own capacity is we have formed groups like DISA, that is Dhaka International School Association, where Madiha is chairing right now. And what we do is we have PD days. So year-round, we have different professional development days where we can actually see different schools, teachers coming in and sharing their own practice. So that has been very helpful, because when you are unsure about something, like Madiha has mentioned, that teachers had hard time thinking that if it's going to work or not. So when we can actually share our ideas, then we can see that, yes, that things works, and it's working very well, and we can learn from each other. I think it's a great form of collaboration and learning from each other. So that's how we are running our shows so far.
Yeah, it's great to hear that there's some level of collaboration that's happening across schools, and I'd love to learn more about that. At TFE, we talk a lot about how
teachers can be the biggest supports to one another, right? That actually peer coaching, peer mentorship, being able to see other teachers operate in the classroom next door, and really being able to see examples both of excellence as well as of struggle can be one of the best ways to learn. I know for myself as a teacher, it was one of the best ways I could really concretely understand kind of what to aspire towards. And so I'm curious if you all could comment a little bit on how much that community of practice exists. Is there a rich exchange of kind of ideas and collaboration across schools? And what could make it even richer and more inclusive? Anyone?
Everyone's looking at me. Yeah, please, go ahead.
Well, I could just add to that, in our school, the Aga Khan School, we do have a professional development program which is extended to the other schools as well. So every year, we have a 3 months to 6 months professional development program where we get people from abroad. We have external speakers. We have our internal, because we have a large internal professional development teachers as well. So we all get them, and they have, we have a module which is actually recognized by the Aga Khan University in Pakistan. They have an Ahmed program which is pretty well known. So we have that module come in, and that is officially given to us. And teachers from many, many schools do participate, and including teachers from our school. And we have these certificate programs through which we exchange a lot of expertise. We actually give out this expertise to the other schools, and we encourage as many schools as possible to come and join us. We have the facilities, we have the capacity, so we can actually invite them to come and join. And we have another one planned from this March onwards, and we will be requesting people to come in. We will be asking for participation. So that's something which has been going on from us, which is a tremendously helpful way of sort of cross-fertilizing ideas and practices. Maybe Madiha could add to that.
And these examples that you have both shared, am I correct in understanding that they are with English medium private school practitioners? It's not cross-medium or anything like that?
It's primarily English medium because they're the ones who come in. But again, having said that, we wouldn't mind making special arrangements for non-English medium schools to come in, teachers to come in, and we can even develop modules for that. We are always open because our school is really more on a philosophy basis rather than anything else. So at the end of the day, we would like to spread the expertise to all.
I'll just add two things very quickly. One is, I think there is a good amount of collaboration amongst a certain group of schools in Dhaka. But then there are many schools, I think, between whom there's almost no collaboration at all. Our schools are very collaborative, I think, but many are not. And the only other thing I'll add is that one of Scholastica's sister concerns is a training center that I mentioned in the beginning. Our training center works with teachers, just to answer your question, not only English medium schools at all. We do workshops with MPO schools as well.
I'll ask one last question, and then I'll open it up to the crowd so you guys can start thinking about what questions you have for our panel. I guess my question to you all is, what is the biggest misperception that is out there about private English medium schools? What is the myth that you'd like to take this platform and dispel?
I honestly think instead of asking us, we should ask what do they think about English medium schools, and then we can tell them what the misconceptions are.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So, well, maybe we can use that to start and turn to the audience. Maybe there are a couple of myths that people bravely want to, or perceptions that people want to share. Asif Bhai, and then we'll move to the back.
Thank you.
You could just introduce yourself when you share.
Sure. My name is Asif Saleh. I'm with BRAC.
Do you guys have these conversations, trying out some of these new pedagogy, or a lot of these conversations around 21st century skills? Is this happening within your community?
To my knowledge, there are many schools where those conversations aren't really happening. The only other thing I'll say is we have a training center that I've talked about. In our training center, we do exactly that. We offer workshops and courses. We actually have a tie-up with Cambridge University. They have these professional development qualifications, so we offer those for teachers. And all of that is about, all of these things that we've been talking about. So there is the conversation is there, but I will admit, I think it's fairly limited. It's limited to
30 or 40 or 50 private schools in Dhaka. And a handful maybe in Chittagong and Sylhet. The first question you asked, it scares you that not enough teachers are being trained. Couldn't agree more. Again, I think there are some of us, and we are not representative of the majority of those schools. We take teacher training very seriously. There's a lot of collaboration. Our teacher training center works with a number of schools, about 30 or 40 schools in Dhaka City to do teacher training. But I feel that many other schools, particularly smaller ones, don't, to be honest with you, I think this is a market failure due to a lack of information that parents have. I don't think they feel the need to do any training. And they don't invest in teacher development much at all, or curriculum development much at all. And that is a bit scary, yes.
Hi, my name is Asif Kashim. I'm from BRAC. I'm the other Asif. So basically my question is, a lot has been discussed today on the quality of education, using use of technology to improve learning outcomes. But I wanted to ask you, like, what is the thinking of private schools around the application of this knowledge? I mean, how do you see that the students who have learned, how are they applying this knowledge? Because I think gaining the knowledge is one part, but the application of it is equally important. So I just wanted to ask that.
I think you need to understand one very important thing, that the school happens to be the first stage of learning, and then there's a whole lot of other learning that any student has to go through in order to make the student worthy for the job market, and then the application of that knowledge. At the school, what we are doing is giving that basic foundation. So after that, they branch out into professional areas of professional knowledge or other, where they prepare themselves, and that is where the applicability of the education comes in. Now, to make it very simple, a student cannot just enter into a university or even a college unless they have done the schooling. Our job is to do the schooling in such a way so that they can get adapted to the university or the college and then be ready for that kind of education.
I also just, oh, sorry, Sabrina, go ahead.
I think schools have a much bigger role in terms of what they are going to learn in the school in terms of skill learning, because you know, this is the place where they're learning to write, read, and the basic speaking, right? So, and that's what you need for your job. So, and to add to that, you need the technology comes in, and so we are teaching that to the students, and we are also teaching them real life problem solving. That's important because, you know, everything can be good on paper, but if they don't actually go into action with that, then they are going to fail, obviously. So, you know, when we are training up the teachers, we always say that, you know, even if you're doing maths, if you're doing English or other disciplines, try to come up with an authentic, real-life situation. So when we are telling them to come up with an idea, like just the other day, our students were arranging futsal, you know, tournament. So when they came up with the idea, I told them to do a cost analysis of that what's going to be needed, how are you going to organize it, how are you going to plan it, and what is the outcome. So things like that will help them to, you know, once they go into their job situation, that's going to help them because they have already practiced that analysis in school. And also you know, internship. I think a lot of schools are doing that as well, especially English medium schools. They are sending students to different seminars, different places where they can do internship, and that's how they are learning. Recently, what we have done is we have made it mandatory for our students of class 11 and 12, since they have a lot of free classes, to help in lower classes where they're going to help the teachers as an assistant maybe. So that sort of placement will help them in their, you know, later part of their life.
Great. Maybe we can take 3 questions at a time. In the back, and then here's Sumaya, and then over there. I think we had a hand over there first.
Oh. To accept a minimum of 25% of their grade 1 seats to be assigned to lower income communities. Private schools have to accept them for free, and they'd get reimbursed by the government at the cost of what the government pays for a typical child going to government school. So I want to ask you guys, as private school providers, would you support that, one? And two, would you be willing to get others in the private school community support something like that in Bangladesh?
Great question. Thank you. In the back.
I'm talking about the children with special need and children with ethnic minority. And now I'm focusing on children with special need. You are, for all of you, discussing about the teachers training. Do you have any, in teachers training module, do you have any content on inclusive education or disabilities? One, and do your teacher know how to, teaching learning process to teach the student with the disabilities, or different types of disabilities?
Could you introduce yourself, please?
Limia Dewan, I'm a program manager, BRAC, BRAC Education Program. Thank you.
Like, how interested are you guys in engaging in educational research, and also like educators being part of research as well, and also being engaged with educational researchers in your schools as well? Because I know on one hand, schools are sometimes afraid to engage educational researchers, because at the same time you guys are running commercial enterprises as well. But at the same time, like, what are your reflections on this? Like, how can you actually be more research-driven in your own policy making?
What is your role in the landscape of education inequity, right? So we heard a couple of really great avenues, but right now, currently, are there any practices or any approaches that you're thinking of or following?
To be honest with you, I'd have to think about that. I don't want to give you a off-the-cuff answer. That's a heavy question with a lot of implications. I will say, however, though, that I think it's very important to have diversity in the student body. At Scholastica, we have a very large scholarship program. 300 to 400 students get a range of scholarships, anything from 100% down to 25%. But we have a large scholarship program because we believe in having a diverse student body. And we're also such a large school that we end up having a diverse student body anyway. But forgive me, I won't address that particular question directly because I need to think about it a little bit, think about the implications. I was asked, can I answer the question that I was asked directly about educational research? Would love to be honest with you. We are actually, our management team we try to be research driven. I am perpetually throwing research at our parents and our teachers, being like, look, the studies say, but we would be, if you're interested, let's talk. Because I would really like to, I think it's so important, right, to be research driven. And in Bangladesh, to my knowledge, or at least to my knowledge, there isn't a lot of research going on certainly in private schools, I don't think there are. I would be happy to partner with anyone who can help us with it. I wouldn't know enough about it myself. But we'd be happy to partner. And if I may also can I just get it over with? There was a question about inclusive education. That's a great question. To be honest with you, it's something that our institution has struggled with for many years. We do have children with special needs. We have children with physical disabilities for sure, but with other kinds of special needs as well. And it's something that we've struggled with because we've had a really hard time getting access to expertise in this area. I'm happy to say that literally just a few weeks ago, like 2 months ago, we brought in someone who has a degree in special ed from the US, and they'll be working with us to set up a proper special education program in our school. So until now, to be honest with you, we've been kind of bumbling along. We try and learn the best we can. Whenever a parent is willing to get a diagnosis, and that's a big if, but if a parent is willing to get a diagnosis and we can get doctor's reports, because very often the doctor's reports will tell the teacher how to work with a child who may be on the spectrum or has a special need. Whenever we do that, we try our best. We study ourselves. But I have to admit that we're not very good at it at all. And I'm very happy that we now have someone who has a little bit more expertise, who hopefully will set up a proper special ed program for us in our school, including teacher training and all of that.
I would like to add to that a little bit more. Sir John Wilson School has been quite famous about taking in special needs students, though we don't advertise at all about it because we don't really have the expertise. As Madiha has said, that it's quite hard to find experts on these issues. But we have been taking a lot of special needs students, and we still have a lot of special needs students. The way we work is we try to have totally a different pattern of planning for them. They have their individual lesson planning, and we have to set up different criteria of expectation for those students. We have, and it's quite diverse. We have students who have who are dyslexic. We have students with other special needs, Asperger's syndrome, Down syndrome, and many other. There are ways that we have handled them. Especially, we have special, a buddy for them, maybe as an assistant teacher, where they are taken out of the classroom because they cannot focus on one thing for a long time, so they need to get some physical exercise. So we have special teachers like that who are going to be who helps them in the classroom. Apart from that, it's a great difficulty to make the parents understand that we need help. Sometimes, most of the times, actually, it happens that we indicate the problem to the parents and they struggle to understand that, yes, they need to get some help. And actually, to tell you the truth, it's very hard to get specialized help in Bangladesh. Most of the time, we get where doctors are saying, just handle with care. That's just nothing. It gives us no direction. So we actually have to get a very good assessment done. Most of the time, we have to recommend them to go abroad and get an assessment done. It's really painful for a lot of the parents to do that and keep up with that, because it's not only one assessment that can solve the problem. It is an assessment after assessment, and then you go again and again to do a similar sort of assessment, because with years it changes. But we have been quite successful. There have been many unsuccessful stories, but we have a lot of success stories as well. A special need child is running a business right now. Another special need child has given A-level, and we are very happy with the result. But it's the mindset of the teachers, it's the mindset of the parents, and also sometimes the children themselves that we need to change. They need to understand and embrace it, and then we have to go forward with that. That's how we work. Thank you.
I'll just very briefly add a couple of points. With regards to the question on research, I would like to say that we are, in our institution, a little more lucky than a lot others, because we have access to the Aga Khan University Institute of Education Development, IED, and they do a lot of research, and we get access to them without any cost. And these are, again, the results of these research are incorporated in the PD modules that we have that we run twice a year. So we do share these research results with the community. Our school has just been also accredited for the International Baccalaureate Diploma Program. So one of the requirements of the DP is that there has to be a special needs policy. And we have developed a very extensive special needs policy. And there are things like, even, you have to design your campus to ensure that it is, accessible by those who are physically challenged and so forth. But, I mean, we cannot possibly do everything overnight. We are trying, we are going step by step. And one of the things about the special needs is also that we have what is called a policy of academic safety net. And this is something which is very similar to special coaching. Children, particularly those who are slow learners or difficult learners, they are given special attention after the classes for about an hour or so by the subject teachers. And they come, they sort of gather around in a very informal atmosphere, and the teacher takes a lot of patience and starts explaining to them. And the idea is that these children should come up to at least the average level in the class. And once they do that, then they're expected to do well in their final results. And this is a continuous exercise which we do all throughout the year. And of course, all our teachers are quite sensitive about the special needs. Thank you.
Yeah, and I guess just to close, I just wanted to see if there was anyone who wanted to take on the question around the role that private schools can
play in the broader picture of creating an equitable, inclusive Bangladesh. We are at BRAC, we are talking about access equity, and I think private schools play a really important piece of the puzzle. And I'm curious to hear very briefly from each of you actually, what is the role that you think that your institution can?
I mean, I think all of us have so much to learn from everybody else. And one of the things that I struggle with is encouraging more collaboration, I think. And I'm not talking within private schools only, but of course across sectors, working with NGOs more. It's fantastic that BRAC is having us at doing a panel like this, because as Asif had said to me when we first talked about this, it doesn't happen that much. Whenever there's conversations about education at that level, very often us as private sector operators are excluded from that. But I think if we can be included, there's a lot that we can learn, and there's a lot that we can give. At the end of the day, we are also pretty well resourced because we're private institutions. We have access to all kinds of resources, for example, Aga Khan School does and so on. So, and I imagine many of us would be very happy to share, because as you were saying, we become better teachers as we collaborate and learn from each other, right? So I would like that role to grow much bigger.
I was part of another session a couple of months ago where we were present. We were talking about 3 strands of education in Bangladesh. One is Bangla medium, English medium, and the madrasa and religious context. And we were talking about how we can collaborate and help each other. So, after hearing from different sectors, I could see that, in terms of expectation, it's quite different. An English medium, with an English medium background, students have different expectation than a madrasa going student. I could see that in terms of when I was talking to the head of the schools. One of the head from madrasa was saying that we need to open the job market and in Saudi Arabia where they can work as people who will be collecting the dates. And I was thinking that why that? Only, why would you want to go as workers only? Why not more than that? Why not running a business over there or something? So I think it's the mindset that we need to change from different sectors, and that can only happen when we collaborate and come together in sessions like this, and that will change the mindset. And the other thing is having a common platform where all students of Bangladesh, I'll just talk about Bangladesh over here, all students of Bangladesh can have some sort of common things that they learn in school level. It could be patriotism, it could be normal human ethics, it could be how they perceive their life in future. and what they can contribute to the country. So if we can have a platform there, I think that will create a common ground for us.
Great, thank you. On that note, this was a very rich discussion. Faisal, did you want to jump in, or?
No, I think they've done a great job.
Beautiful note to end on. Thank you very much for this very rich discussion. I hope that we continue to engage all of you in this conversation. I agree very much that actually the more we are able to collaborate together as educators from across the spectrum, the better all of us and our kids ultimately are served. So thank you. Big round of applause for our panel.
For the last session, you'll be heading on to the auditorium for the public-private partnership session that will be held in the auditorium in about 2 to 3 minutes.